Stroke deep center field. Torres chasing and is gone, and the party is on in the Hub City. And he launches this one into the trays. Goodbye. And add to it. Straight to the roost. And whoever operates the horn has been standing on it.
Hey, Golden Eagle fans, I'm Southern Miss Stadium announcer Jackson Walker, and you're listening to Nasty Bunch and Beyond.
How's it going, y'all? Welcome in to another episode of Nasty Bunch and Beyond. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. Man, what an exciting weekend for Southern Miss baseball. Are we back? Are we so back? I feel like it. I feel like we're so back. That was awesome weekend against Texas State. If people tuned in and listened to our series preview pod with Texas State beat reporter Caleb Young, you knew the challenge that was ahead for the Southern Miss pitching staff, because as good as the Southern Miss pitching has been this year, Texas State had one of the best offenses in the league. I mean, they were third in batting average. They were first by a wide margin in home runs. They came into the weekend with 73 home runs. The next best mark was Arkansas State with 58. So the challenge was big, but the Southern Miss pitching staff stepped up, and they did the job over the weekend. Not only did Southern Miss win the series, they swept Texas State, much needed sweep. Got back up in the national rankings. D1 baseball had us down at 22 last week, but now back up to number 18 and have the number 12 RPI as we go down the final stretch of this regular season. So, big series sweep. That will look nice as we go down the stretch here, and now just got to handle business against Tulane. Got on Tuesday night at the Peak. Got to take it one game at a time, and then next weekend at South Alabama. Which I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I don't want to put pressure on them to do it, because Coach Oz has said the same thing earlier this season. He said he'd never put the pressure on his team to sweep every series or something like that, just because that's kind of being disrespectful to the other talent around the league. But this is another series this coming weekend against South Alabama that I think the guys can sweep, and it would really help their cause as far as postseason positioning and stuff like that goes, if they could pull off a second consecutive sweep after basically the last month before this past weekend series. They'd been playing 500 baseball, so it would be nice to see them fully flip this switch, and I think they have. I think we're about to see that patented Southern Miss end of the season run like we did last year, and should have a lot of good things coming our way down the stretch of this year. So we're going to talk about all that. I'm going to go, give a brief game by game, kind of the feel of it and what happened, and some of the bigger moments, some quotes from some of the guys that we posted on Southern Miss Golden Eagles on SI. But before we do that, I just want to shout out our partners, our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Shantyman Premium Jerky. You can visit shantymanfoods.com and use our promo code SMTTT to get 30% off your entire purchase. This episode is also brought to you by To The Top Merch. You can visit tothetopmerch.myshopify.com and use our promo code NastyBunchPod to get 20% off your purchase there. And this episode is also brought to you by the To The Top Collective. So you can go to tothetopcollective.com, consider joining over there, and make a direct impact in the lives of Southern Miss student athletes and Southern Miss athletics in general. So be sure to go over there and consider doing that. Okay, so the series got off to a very good start. It was a situation where, people were kind of on edge because of the home run numbers that Texas State had put up. And it's nothing to scoff. I mean, it's not to discredit those numbers, but you get to looking at how the field is in San Marcos, Texas. They call it Slam Marcos for a reason. It's just shorter on the corner. You know, I think there's like a 10 to 15 foot difference in the corners compared to what it is at the Pete. And you saw that play a factor this weekend. There were several loud flyouts for Texas State where, you know, if it had been at their place, it probably would have been a home run. So I think that kind of had that played a little bit of a factor in it. But the Southern Miss pitching staff was also just outstanding because overall on the weekend had 39 strikeouts, 17 alone in that last series sweep clincher on Sunday. They were just outstanding. They played great. They only gave up one home run to Texas State the entire weekend. So for a team that came into the weekend with 73, you know, basically 2/3 of the way through the season, to be held to one home run on the entire weekend is pretty impressive. And I think that's something that Coach Oz and the pitching staff and the whole team should be extremely proud of. That was big time stuff from them. But yeah, Friday's game got off to a very good start. It was ended up being an 8-2 win for Southern Miss in that one, and there were hits from, you know, so many people from the 1 to the 7 spot. Everybody had a hit. And then Gray Eubanks added on a hit as well. So, you know, you had 8 of your 9 spots there getting on the board with a hit in that game. It was evenly distributed, and Southern Miss ended up winning that one 8-2. And most of the scoring in that game came in the 3rd inning, where the Golden Eagles just completely blew the game wide open. So it started with Gray Eubanks leading off the 3rd inning. He got hit by a pitch. Then Seth Smith singled. And then Joey Urban got a single. And then Kyle Morrison had a sac fly that tied the game at 1-1. Texas State scored first in the 2nd inning, but came back, tied it at 1 with you know, just that one out. Well, then Davis Gillespie got a single, which scored Seth Smith. Joey Urban advanced to 3rd base on that one. And then Dre Barrett came up a few batters later. So now 2 outs. He doubled to make it 3-1. And so even if the inning had ended there, it's like, okay, well, this has already been very productive. You know, you bounce back. You know, you were down by 1 run and you came back with 3 in the 3rd inning. And then you're thinking, okay, well, that may be it for this one. Well, that wasn't the case. So with with 2 men on base, Ben Higdon homered to left field. It was his 3rd of the season that scored Davis Gillespie and Dre Barrett. And you know that had to feel good for Ben Higdon. It's kind of hard for me to believe that was only his 3rd of the year, but it came at a big moment and it just broke the game wide open. You know, made it 6-1 in the 3rd inning. And Southern Miss was in control from that point on. I mean, it was an outstanding first game, great way to, you know, get the momentum going in the right direction, especially after what happened in that midweek game in Pearl against Ole Miss. You know, you want to shake stuff like that off and, you know, move on as efficiently as you can. And I thought the guys definitely did that. The tandem or the dynamic duo of Graydon Harris and Colby Allen struck yet again. It was arguably one of Graydon Harris's more efficient nights. You know, he claimed after that first game that he didn't have his best stuff, which, you know, I mean, he's probably a perfectionist, and you know, guys like that are always trying to get better. So I get it. But Graydon Harris was awesome. He got the win, improved his record to 7-1 on the year, a little over. So it was 6 1/3 innings for Graydon Harris. Only gave up 2 runs on 8 hits and had 6 strikeouts on the night, 96 pitches. And then Colby Allen came in for the last 2 innings and 2/3 and just had 4 strikeouts, no hits given up, no runs. He was outstanding. I mean, he is the numbers are just unbelievable for Colby. You know, you look at his numbers as when he was the Friday night starter to start the year versus now, you know, moving back into that bullpen, it's pretty crazy. Like the confidence is at an all-time high. He's back where he belongs in that bullpen, and you know, he agreed on that. Coach Oz agreed on that. They all got on the same page, and so I'm glad they worked all that out, because it was, you know, it's not that he was bad as a starter, but you could just tell once he moved back into the bullpen, it's like, okay, this is going to be way better for this team going forward. So great first win on Friday, take that 1-0 lead. It was also, you know, they were honoring Pete Taylor all weekend. This is a preview for the Saturday, because Saturday was the bobblehead night, but they were honoring Pete Taylor all weekend, legendary coach. And here's a look at the bobblehead that they gave, you know, wearing the classic Southern uniform. Pretty nice little gift for the fans there that they were giving out on Saturday. And then so after how things went for Texas State on Friday night, you just kept thinking like, okay, well, are the bats going to come alive? Are they going to start hitting a bunch of home runs? You know, it's almost just like you were just waiting on it. And during Saturday's game, Southern Miss came out, took a 1-0 lead in the bottom of the first. In the second, top of the second inning, Texas State freshman Jackson Cotton, who is outstanding. You know, I think he is going to be this was the final series that Southern Miss will play against Texas State as a member of the Sun Belt Conference. They could always do something, you know, schedule them as non-conference in the future. But as conference rivals, this was it. This was the final one, because Texas State is going to the Pac-12 next season. So it's probably a good thing as far as, you know, not having to see Jackson Cotton as much over the next few years, because I thought he was outstanding this weekend. And I think they said he's just the 3rd Texas State freshman to have double-digit home runs in their program's history. He got his 12th of the season in the top of the second inning of that Saturday game, a 2-run shot to give Texas State a 2-1 lead in that game. And at that point, when that happened so early in that game, you were thinking like, okay, well, is this the moment where things are going to start to turn for their offense? But it just never did. In the bottom of the second inning, Dre Barrett got a ground rule double to start off the inning, and then Ben Higdon got a single that brought him home. So, you know, after that 2-run shot, you're thinking, okay, well, Texas State has a little bit of momentum. Eags come back, shut that momentum down, tie it at 2, and then in the third, they end up taking the lead off a Gillespie ground out that scored Joey Urban. So from that point on, again, just like the other game, you never felt like the Golden Eagles were out of control. I mean, they got the lead there, and then it was kind of, you know, it was kind of boring from a scoring perspective from that point until the 8th inning. But then in the bottom of the 8th, Davis Gillespie leads off the inning with a near 400-foot home run that that went over the tradition of excellence billboard in left field. Like it's one thing to hit the billboard. When it sails way over it, I mean, you know, you're doing something. When Davis Gillespie gets a hold of one, he slaps the hide off the baseball. Like, he hits the ball so hard. You know it's gone when he does that. So hit that solo homer, made it 4-2 Southern Miss. And then Ben Higdon got walked later in that inning, and the Eags had 2 outs at this point. So Higdon got a 2-out walk, And then Tucker Stockman came up and got his 5th homer of the year. That was a 10th homer for Davis Gillespie to lead off the 8th, bottom of the 8th. And then Stockman got his 5th homer of the season, and it went to nearly the same exact spot, a little bit more to the right of that tradition of excellence billboard, but nearly the same spot as Gillespie's went to. It was a 2-run shot that scored Ben Higdon and himself. So that made it 6-2. And then, gave up a 1 run to Texas State in the top of the 9th, but then Cross Sibley came in to get that final out, and the Eags won the series and that second game 6-3. So again, it was one of those things where you had some evenly distributed hitting, 12 hits on the night in that one after you had 12 hits the game before. It was evenly distributed. It was consistent. Your pitching was outstanding once again. And, shout out to Camden Sundstrom, who has just ran into some things that some things you can control, but then there's some other things that were out of his control too over the last several weekends that caused, the team ended up losing in games that he started. And that doesn't necessarily mean he pitched bad or anything like that, but there were just some moments that kind of got away from him, and it didn't go the way he wanted to. But he bounced back in a big way and had a really solid start. Made it through 6 innings, only gave up 2 runs on 4 hits, and had 6 strikeouts. Had 93 pitches. He improved to 3-3 on the year, record-wise, after getting the win. And after that game, I asked Camden about, how the last few weeks had gone, and, just getting on the other side of that and finally getting a win in some of these starts. And he said, about a week ago, Coach Oz challenged me to get through 6 innings. It was a great feeling, not only getting through that 6th inning, but it feels even better to know that we have momentum going into tomorrow. So had to feel good for Sundstrom. It was very much indeed a sunny Saturday at the Pete, even though it was technically cloudy, but it was sunny for Sundstrom, that's for sure. I thought he was great. And then, Josh Ock, he was great for 2 innings. He had a little bit of trouble there at the top of the 9th after getting that second out, and then Cross Sibley had to come in to get the final out. But overall, he was pretty great. So Cross and Josh Ock combined for 5 strikeouts, and just gave up that 1 hit, 1 run by Josh Ock. But pretty good stuff all around for Southern Miss on the Saturday game. And then finally, the game that, the series was already decided, but Southern Miss really needed the sweep. Texas State was probably desperate to avoid the sweep. At least if you avoid the sweep, you get 1 win on the weekend on the road against a ranked team. So, you knew they weren't going to go down without a fight, but it was one of those games where it was back and forth, some great base running by Southern Miss at the start of the game. That really throughout the whole game, I thought it was a very noticeable change to what we saw like in the first part of the season. You can tell the base running is just more aggressive now. Not just trying to steal bases, but just like, on hits where it's like it's kind of a coin flip. Can he make it this far? Can he not? They're sending Joey Urban a lot. They're and look, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. There was one where they were called out at the plate trying to send a guy home during that Sunday game. But there were times throughout the weekend and on Sunday, like that first run that Joey Urban scored on, where it works out for you. And I think for a team that has this good of a pitching staff, but, the offense has shown that it can be stagnant at times, I think that's a way that you can keep that offense from being stagnant by being aggressive. When you do have base runners, be aggressive. Put that pressure on those opposing pitching staffs. Make them second guess themselves a little bit. And I thought that the guys did a great job doing that this entire weekend, especially on Sunday. You could really tell at Sunday they were very aggressive on the bag. So Joey Irvin got the scoring started, scored to make it 1-0. Then Davis Gillespie got a single that scored. Kyle Morrison made it 2-0 in the bottom of the first. And then it stayed that score all the way until the bottom of the fourth, where Joey Irvin singled and scored Lawson Odom. So it was 3-0 lead going into the fifth. And you're thinking, okay, well, this is maybe Texas State has just run out of gas and about to slam the door here. But Texas State comes back in the top of the fifth, scores 2 runs to make it 3-2 Southern Miss. It stayed that score until the top of the seventh. Texas State came back and tied it at 3-3. And then in the bottom of the eighth, with the score tied at 3, you're getting close to that time of the game again, and Matthew Russo was leading off the bottom of the eighth inning with a 3-3 tie. He homers. He goes nearly 370 feet, sends it to the roost. It was his 7th homer of the year. And train horn sound. Everybody's, hyped up for Russo, thinking that he potentially won the game there. And it was still important, even though it didn't end up being the winning run, because in the top of the ninth, Texas State came back and scored off of a double from Dawson Park, who was, I thought, very good. He's one of those players that he just refused to throw down and say, hey, we're going to lose this game. He ended up losing it anyway, but he was one of those guys that you could just tell he had a lot of resiliency to him. So the Russo home run did not end up being the game-winning run, but it was one of those where it came in a very clutch moment. He has shown over the years, over the course of his career, that he just has a knack for those moments. And we talked to him, asked him about that in the postgame after that win. And he said, in those moments, my mentality is to simplify the game as much as I can and find a way to be on base for my teammates to drive me in. It was a very important weekend for us against a very talented team, looking to ride this momentum one game at a time and play for one another. So Russo, Bull, he has a knack for coming up big in those spots. He's got ice in his veins. He had a little bit of a midseason slump hitting-wise, but he has definitely broken out of that now. And look, I saw a stat earlier where, when leading off an inning this season, now I don't know what the volume is here, like how many times he has been the leadoff guy for an inning. But when Bull is leading off an inning this season, he's hitting 481. So I know everything was flowing pretty good this weekend, and I don't know if Coach Oz is going to want to try and tweak the lineup any more than he has to if something's working. But if a guy's hitting 481 when he leads off an inning, and we're more than 2/3 into the season, maybe Bull needs to be the leadoff man going forward. That feels kind of weird, to think about, to envision. But when I saw that stat, I was just like, maybe Bull needs to be our leadoff guy. So, but anyway, Texas State came back and tied it at 4 in that final game in the top of the ninth. We ended up going to extra innings. So how fitting that for Texas State and Southern Miss playing their last series as conference rivals, how fitting was it that you got some extra innings? They love each other so much they just couldn't put it away in 9. They had to have an extra inning of baseball. So Thomas Crabtree came in for Colby Allen, who got his second round of action on the weekend. And, he's just been a workhorse all year, Colby Allen has. But Crabtree came in, closed things out in the top of the 10th. And then in the bottom of the 10th, Ty Long scored from third base. Ty Long was in as a pinch runner. He ended up at third base, and he scored off of a wild pitch from Texas State. So, and again, with that preview pod I did with Caleb Young, we were talking about the Texas State pitching, and he said that they could be a little erratic at times. And so, in my mind, I was thinking like, well, there you go. That's pretty fitting that it ended that way. And that was one of the big keys for the series coming into it, was how the pitching would hold up for Texas State. So Southern Miss ends up winning in walk-off fashion, as our guy Jason Baker on the ESPN Plus broadcast put it. Jason does such a great job. I mean, it's literally one of the best, if not the best in the nation, as far as like these ESPN Plus broadcasts go. If there's a better one, I haven't heard one yet, but I heard I saw the call there at the end, and he said that Pete Taylor Park magic just comes in so many different shapes and forms. And man, it was a weird way to see a walk-off, but it was great to see. Anyway, it was one of those things where like they didn't I didn't know if anybody's shirt was going to get ripped off for this one or not, because it's like, who do you do it? Who do you do it to? Their pitcher, Texas State's pitcher? Do you go rip his shirt off for the walk-off celebration there? Or because Lawson Odom was at the plate, but he didn't actually drive the run in. And then Ty Long just benefited from the wild pitch. So I guess it's one of those things where you just hold off on that stuff and unless somebody actually forces it to happen. But that'd be pretty funny. You go and you take Texas State's pitcher's jersey off because he walked it off for you. But anyway, Southern Miss wins that final game 5-4. And man, we got to give a shout out to Camden Clark. Sophomore, he's been one of the best, if not the best closer. I know he's been, he's definitely the best closer in the conference, but he's been one of the best closers in the entire nation. And, he finally got the call from Oz to be a starting pitcher. So he was starting on Sunday, his first D1 collegiate start. And he went nearly 5 full innings, only gave up 5 hits, only gave up 2 runs there at the there in the 5th inning with 2 outs. Or he had 2 outs in the 5th inning, and that was the spot where they gave up those 2 runs, but had 8 strikeouts and just was incredible. Like he was mixing his fastball, his curveball, and just did a really good job for a guy who has been closer all year. To have that role switch and to come in that spot and to perform the way he did. And obviously we knew stamina was going to be, part of it. You don't just do that big of a role switch and not have that come into play. But, I thought he showed some major flashes of what could come in the last part of this season and going into the postseason. So he was outstanding. It made me feel like for the first time this entire season that Coach Oz has finally found his set in stone 3-man starting rotation in Graydon Harris, Camden Sundstrom, and Camden Clark. So that was great to see from Clark. Shout out to him. It was great. Talked to him after that performance, and he said, obviously the first thing that comes to my head is, what do I need to do to maintain stamina? Because when you close, you're just coming in to throw as hard as you can for 10 to 15 pitches. But honestly, the approach is still the same. Just attack the hitters, whether I'm covering 1 inning or 7. So, like we said, stamina was going to be a thing. Everybody knew it going in. It was like, how many nobody was expecting Camden Clark to go 6, 7, 8 innings or something like that. So, but he ended up going nearly a full 5, got to 68 pitches. And again, the 8 strikeouts in the 4 2/3 innings, that's what really sticks out to me. So, and again, 17 strikeouts altogether for the Golden Eagles pitching staff in that Sunday game. Colby Allen came in, his second action of the weekend, got 4 strikeouts in a little over 2 innings there at the end before Thomas Crabtree took over in the 10th and got 2 strikeouts himself. So great job by Camden Clark in his first start. And again, just great job overall by the Golden Eagles pitching staff. Southern Miss improves to 28-12 overall, 11-7 in conference play. And look, y'all, I know I'm on record as saying I don't think, the top spot in the Sun Belt is up for grabs in this final stretch of the year because of how hot Coastal Carolina started out. But they did lose a game this weekend. They didn't sweep. They didn't sweep this past weekend. They lost the game. So, look, if Texas State, I'd say Coastal Carolina has a similar ballpark to Texas State dimension-wise. Like it's more of what Texas State players are accustomed to as far as the length of the field and everything. So I'm not saying that they'll go in there and upset Coastal next weekend, but Texas State plays at Coastal Carolina, and it's a very home run friendly ballpark. And you have guys who have just been smashing home runs, especially at home, and these field dimensions match what they're used to playing at. So I'm saying Texas State has a chance. If they go in there and get 1 or 2 games against Coastal and Southern Miss takes care of business against South Alabama, which should be a lot of fun, you'll have that storyline with Kyle Morrison returning to play his former team and all that stuff. If Southern Miss takes care of business and Texas State can take out some frustration from this past weekend, next weekend when they play Coastal, it's going to start to get very interesting down the stretch. And it's also going to make us very frustrated, more frustrated that the Sun Belt decided that they didn't need to do a regular season series between Southern Miss and Coastal Carolina on their schedule. Just what a missed opportunity for the league to showcase their top 2 teams and have them battle it out in the regular season. It would have been incredible, but you'll have to see if you meet up with them in the conference tournament if things work out that way. So I'm changing my stance a little bit. Do I think it's likely? No, I don't think it's likely that we'll catch Coastal for that number 1 seed in the conference tournament just because of time. Like I don't know if we have enough time to do it. I'm not saying that the guys can't win the rest of their series the rest of this year. I just don't know if Coastal is going to lose enough for us to make up the difference. So that's where I'm at with that. But we'll see. Some crazy things have happened. Much crazier things have happened. But it would go a long way toward Southern Miss's chances of doing that if Texas State can go into Coastal and get a win or 2 this next weekend. So we'll see how it goes. Again, Southern Miss, they'll play Tulane at home at the Pete. And then I think that's the final midweek home game. There is one series that's going to start early. I think it's the last series of the year where the first game is going to start on a Thursday, but that's still technically a weekend series. This is the last true midweek home game this year. So everybody get out to the Pete if you can. Let's give these guys, as much support as possible. They've gotten out of their funk. I think we're about to see that patented run, that hot streak toward the end of the year that we've seen the last handful of years, and see what happens come tournament time. And maybe we can get, Baseburg hosting again by the time it's all said and done. But guys, I appreciate you coming in and listening to me ramble for a little bit. Had a great time this weekend. It's always a great time, win or lose. It's always a great vibe at the Pete, and I thoroughly enjoy my time out there, getting to take in the action and being among the people, so to speak, in the crowd with the chairs and everything. It's always a great time. Like I wouldn't have it. I mean, I like the view from the stands, and I have sat in the stands a couple of different times, but man, there's nothing like having your own chair out there and having good weather and watching some good baseball. So, guys, I appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Have a great week. It's Monday, so we're just getting started, but I think we've got a good week ahead. So, guys, appreciate it. Y'all have a good one. See you next time.